What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fix My List. I am on Fix My List for the first time in a while, honestly.
I know,
and
it's
exciting
exciting
because we're doing Tau, we're going to do Necrons, we're going to do some of the factions that I have been really enjoying playing, and fix some of these lists.
I know, it's a Richard Siegler special.
Exactly, and Fix My List is a content piece that we do every Thursday that's designed around taking some of our War members' lists that they've been working on and trying to refine, and putting our knowledge, expertise, the reps that we've played off-stream and on-stream into helping fix them. So if you want to be part of the War Room, please go ahead and click the description below, thewarroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. Check it out. But you also gain access to our amazing community on Discord. And in there is a entire thread where you can submit lists for this
I
feature.
think it's just literally called Fix My List. You just post it in there. We pick 3 every week. And well, they're here.
And we've been doing them thematically so that each faction gets some representation. So we're going to be going through all the different factions. But this is very exciting because I haven't done it in a little while.
I know, yeah. It's normally been a lot of me and Jack, but
Yeah.
Jack's out today, so it's me and you.
All right. So we're going to be doing 2 Tau lists today and 1 Necron list. Tau is the main theme, but we've put Necrons in here because it's an army that is towards the top of the meta, but to kind of refine your builds, I see a lot of Necron lists leaning towards particular tech choices, and so we're going to talk about those and what we think is going to work best going forward.
All right, so you want to go ahead and get into it?
If you like this type of content, Fix My List, any of the stream games, Quentin and I just played Yunari versus Grey Knights yesterday on YouTube. If you like our content, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment below, letting us know what you think about our content, and also specifically the list that we edit here.
All right. So this is our first list is by Lord of Noodles.
And there are a lot of noodles to lord over out there.
Yeah,
So
a whole bunch of them.
let's go ahead and figure out what's going on here.
Okay, so what is this list? Is a Kalyan detachment for Tau. Included, we have Farsight, a Farsight's marksman, a Cold Star with 3 plasma, a shield generator, and 2 shield drones with Exemplar, the Kalyan. 20 breachers with the good drones. A 6-man unit of Crisis battlesuits with 18 plasma rifles and shield generators, plus shield drones. And then 2 3-man Crisis battlesuit teams with cyclics and shields, 2 Devilfish for those breachers, 3 stealth suit teams, a unit of Espid, and a Ghost Keel battlesuit.
So, good smattering of stuff. Obviously, the core here is Crisis Suits. That is near and dear to my heart. I think they are still the strongest unit in the Tau book.
I think you're correct,
Once again, which the Crisis Suits were not good in 8th edition. So this is a transformation where Crisis Suits are finally good for multiple editions, which is cool. They are core to the army. So let's go ahead and get in here. It's fairly MSU. Tau's kind of playstyle, in my opinion, is you have a couple brick units that are going to do most of your damage, and everything else is to support secondaries, to screen out those units, and to give you good observer units and benefits. So right now, I think we have enough damage dealers, but I think we want to edit them a little bit.
I agree. I think these plasma rifles should be cyclics.
The plasma rifles are... So the reason you would think about plasma rifles is they have a bit longer inch range than cyclic ions. Cyclic ions, 18-inch range. You have to get relatively close to use them to maximum efficiency, and you can't really pick off, say, your opponent's, a Hornet or a Warwalker that's kind of hiding towards your opponent's backfield objectives, but still sticking out. If you're running cyclic, you're not really able to pick that off.
Yeah.
Now, I run different units to be able to do that, but if you run pure cyclic, then you might have trouble. Now, the downside here is plasma is only 6 extra inch range now.
Really not that impressive.
If it was 30 like it was in 9th edition, I would actually like this unit, because it does give you that flexibility to pick off things from a distance. You get high AP from them, so you don't need Ignor's cover as much from your observer unit. But with only 24-inch range on these, it's only 6 extra. The difference of 6 extra inches, I'd rather the dramatic volume of fire you get from cyclic, personally. Even though you have the downside of hazardous, I would just prefer that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and make these. Cyclics are, unfortunately, just the best choice by a mile.
Yes. And on top of that, you're already running the Cold Star Commander, who's letting you move 12 inches. At flat advance 6, thanks to the Crisis data sheet, so you move 18, and then you're going to strike and fade 12 inches back. Even though you got within 18 of them, now you're 12 inches back from the target you just hit. You're still in a relatively safe position, so I don't think Plasma offers enough of a difference.
I think this Cold Star should drop the shield and just go for 4 cyclics.
Yes.
Because he's not really going to get hit anyways.
What you could do here is the high output burst cannon.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things about hazardous is you don't have to overcharge all the cyclics in the unit. Say you're going into something you will kill 3 times over if you overcharge everything. You don't need to do that. Usually what I do against those targets is I overcharge 2 of the models, or maybe even 3, but not everything. And having the high output burst means that you could potentially split fire the Cold Star. Just if there's like 2 models that are hanging around that you want to finish off, you can put a couple on overcharged cyclics and the high output burst that way and just finish them off. So I don't mind it as 1 less potential hazardous if you full overcharge the whole unit. But it's a nice weapon to split off, especially because the commander has 1 higher ballistic skill than the Crisis models.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good call.
2 shield drones. So typically I like 1 marker drone on the commander. And that is specifically for whatever reason if I decide to split the commander. This is more common when Crisis Commander was a little more popular before Tetris came out. But I like having the 1 marker just in case it acts as an observer. It's nice to have the marker-like keyword to ignore cover.
I also like having the marker drone here because it gives the unit the marker keyword. And then your Crisis suits can just all have shields, and they're all 6 wounds each.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go ahead and just make this 12 shield drones.
Yes, sir. 12 shield drones, get the extra wounds in there on the bodies that are going to be taking the damage. Now, I understand, sniping could be a thing here, but generally you're keeping the commander as safe as possible out of the whole unit.
He's also, he's probably not going to die to, random snipers. He's toughness 5, he's got, 6 or 7 wounds,
Yeah.
3 up save, 3 second die.
Okay, so we got the Cold Star. He's got Exemplar the Kalyan, so that Kalyan activates turn 2 onward. This is the best enhancement by far.
It's not even close.
He's going to go in the 6-man Crisis unit.
Yep.
So that unit's settled. Done. That's our key damage dealer. We're going to try and use Strike and Fade on it every single time we want to use it. Keep it safe. All right, so moving on to the other characters. So we got Farsight here. Farsight's big benefit is that he gives you access to +1 to wound for models within 9 inches of the target unit. This synergizes turn 3 onward with point blank ambush for extra AP within 9 inches as well. So his downside is, first of all, you can't take ethereals.
Yes.
So you can't take the ethereal for CP regen, and you can't take Onva, who is an amazing screen and lone op and blah blah blah. So downside there, his firepower is 2 shots. It's pretty damn mediocre.
Yeah.
And then his combat, once per game, you can get full real estate wound. And his ability works in combat as well. So he can finish off things in combat. That's not too bad. If you want to get use out of him, you really have to use Rapid Ingress. So Rapid Ingress allows your opponent does their turn, they move their stuff, and then you Rapid Ingress his Crisis unit down behind a terrain piece where you're easily able to step out 10 inches, get within 9, and blow something up.
And that goes well with the stealth suits being able to make you Rapid Ingress for free.
Exactly. So there's nice synergy there. I obviously like having Cyclic Ion at +1 to wound. That's very powerful. You are giving up the mobility, so once that unit's on the board, it is easier to play around them because they cannot advance and shoot since they don't have the assault keyword that the Cold Star gives Crisis units, and they don't have that extra 2-inch move that the Cold Star gives. So when you bring Farsight, you are definitely thinking about, hey, there's a lot of knights in my meta, there's a lot of big, tough targets that I need to deal with. Those tough targets are going to be in the center of the board, so I'm not worried about having to go after them. This is where Farsight and his Crisis unit are useful. So let's assume that this is the meta, and we're going to keep Farsight here. And what I would personally do is make the 2 3-mans another 6-man.
I agree with that.
So why wouldn't you do that? You wouldn't do that because you're playing against an MSU heavy edition where there's a lot of good 5-man units where you don't need a 6-man Crisis unit to blow them to smithereens every single turn. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of, most of the top armies have giant brick units that are very durable and hard for most units to kill. And that's where we want the redundancy of 2 big Crisis bricks.
You can also just split fire them. Crisis units, you can really overkill things. I know you lose a lot of efficiency not being able to guide something. Yep. But you can still you can do it if you want to, right? There's not much that 4 Crisis suits won't just kill if they shoot at it.
Exactly. But it also means that you can overcharge part of the unit.
Yes.
Put every shot in there, overcharge part of the unit, and the other shots will make sure that if they were on a wound or 2, you still finish them off. Yeah. But my personal opinion is that if the edition shifted more towards MSU, I would like the 3-man Crisis more effective, more significantly. But right now, when you consider the top armies, you got Knights up there, you got Eldar with their all sorts of big vehicles, Wraith Knights and stuff. You've got Necrons with their big brick units. You've got a bunch of armies that are hard to deal with if you go more MSU. So I'd rather have the reliability of, I am going to delete this unit, no problem. And now I have 2 units. So my Crisis unit with the Cold Star is going to be more my later. I'm going to use them to strike and fade and keep them safe. The Farsight unit is the one that is going to get exposed if I need to expose 2 units. It's going to tank as much damage as it can. And if it dies, it dies. But if it's still Farsight and 2 or 3 models left,
it's not nothing.
It's still quite effective, and it's going to blow up anything in the middle
put the
of
Fuel of Pain on there too. 6 wounds is a really awkward number to chew through.
Yep, with stim injectors, like you mentioned. So let's go for this. This is our damage is settled here. We've got 1 unit that's going to usually start on the board and threaten to move 18 inches, shoot you, and strike and fade back. And then we got Farsight's unit who's going to come down with rapid ingress with the stealth suit unit for free and be in the center of the table ready to counter anything that goes in there. So done on that.
Cool.
I'm going to skip Breachers for now. Let's go to the support pieces. So now we need Observer units that can help support these Crisis suits. Stealth suits, we've already mentioned, they're awesome for, first they infiltrate, so if you get area denial early, they can be that unit to get up there. They have the gun drone on them, which I like because it allows you to be able to advance the unit and still do an action.
Because it's an assault gun.
Because it is an assault weapon. And then they have the marker drone key ability here, token, so that they can help units ignore cover when they're acting as an observer. And they already want to do that because they give reroll 1s to wound, which is quite nice when combined with Farsight's unit with +1 to wound. So 1 unit is perfectly fine. Now, Tetras, I already mentioned them. They are the best observer unit in the Tau corpus
Arsenal,
by
it's
far.
not particularly close.
It's not even close. You get 2 bodies that are T7, 7 wounds. 4 for 80 points, and their ability is full rerolls to wound. They're infiltrators as well, so you can start them in a good aggressive position in the middle of the table. Your Crisis unit with the Cold Star can be like, all right, I'm going to move 18. My infiltrating Tetras are going to pop out. Full rerolls to hit against whatever I want. Blow them up and just control a flank turn 1. So I personally think you don't need more than 1 stealth suit unit. Okay. You could run 2, and that's still fine, but I'd like to see at least 1 Tetra unit in here.
I agree. So I'm just gonna.
If you don't have Tetras, there is a guide in our Discord for building a Piranha and then editing it to be a Tetra. And there's also guides, I believe, on YouTube that you could find. So look into that. But you really want at least 1 unit of Tetras. It should, in my opinion, you should run 3 units of them. But we're going to keep the stealth suits here as synergy. And I assume because Tetras weren't in the original list, they aren't easily accessible.
Yeah, they're forge-rolled pieces. They're kind of hard to get.
Yep. So we're going to add 1 in here. You could always downgrade it to another stealth suit unit if you want to, but it is quite a downgrade, in my opinion. All right, so we got 2 Tetras. Just let them know it's 2.
Okay. 2 times.
Yep. And we've got our stealth suits. That's all fine. All right, Vespid. So Vespid are another mission-playing tool here. Unfortunately, they don't have For the Greater Good as an auxiliary unit, so they can't act as an observer, which is one of the downsides against them. The reason that you do take them is they have a bit of damage, strength 5, AP 2 damage. When they come down, they could pick off a cheap unit, although it's still not entirely likely. And in addition, at the end of your movement phase, they can go back into reserve. If this was opponent's movement phase, then it is amazing, and I would always run 1 unit.
Oh, it's your movement phase?
It's your movement phase. It might be a typo. It really should be a typo, Games Workshop. It should be like almost every other ability in the game, which is end of your opponent's turn, you get to bring them back up. So if that gets edited, then I really love Vespid. But because it's end of your movement phase, you don't have that, all right, they're screening my backfield in my opponent's turn. My opponent does their things, we play out the turn, and then end of their turn I go back up, and if I draw a secondary I need, like engage or behind enemy lines, bam, the Vespid go do that. Otherwise, they sit in my backfield. Mandrakes, Swooping Hawks all do this type of stuff, and there's a bunch of other units in the game that do as well. But because it's end of your movement phase, it's not quite as effective. You already know your secondary cards, you're not coming down until your next turn, so you're losing a turn. You don't get that screen. You don't get your cake and eat it too with them. So I tried them out. They're okay. But I personally think that the Firesight Marksman is superior. And there's a couple reasons. I know you already have 1, but I think we should go to 2. So the Firesight Marksman's a lone op. and that is amazing because your opponent has to be within 12 to target them. And on top of that, they have the marker-like keyword inbuilt and have for the greater good, so they are a very solid observer unit. It's Firesight Marksman, not Farsight Marksman. As much as I love Farsight and would give him credit for being a marksman, it's the Firesight Marksman.
I've been calling him Farsight Marksman the
know.
entire time of playing Tau.
It's the Firesight Marksman. So we're going to go for a second one here, and you can still put him in reserve. It's strategic reserves, not deep strike, but we already have a stealth suit unit and Tetras for infiltrating purposes to get towards the center of the board for area denial, and we're going to be controlling objectives with our crisis units and whatnot. So we don't need them as much for this. It's a backfield screen that doesn't die to indirect fire and can just sit there all game, and it's a observer unit that we has lone operative and marker light, so it can sit out in the firing angles, give you your observer ability, which is just going to be +1 ballistic skill and ignores cover, so that you don't have to expose Tetras if you don't need to. And that's very powerful. A screen that doesn't really die all game can sit on an objective out in the open and force your opponent to get close to you. They just sit there, they survive, they give you observer benefits. It's very strong for 70 points. I quite like them a lot. They also add some sniping if you need it, but that rarely comes up personally in the games that I've played. But I just like them better than Vespid. They don't cover as much space as a 5-man Vespid, the unit that's strung out, but Vespids can die from indirect, and their ability just doesn't synergize at the time it needs to be as effective, in my opinion. And if you want to start the Firesight Marksman in reserve, you totally can, and they can come down in the corner, do investigate signals, and then your opponent, once again, has to get within 12 inches of the corner with a damage dealer to get over there.
So we're adding this Firesight Marksman, and we're cutting the Vespid?
Yeah, I don't think Vespid are very good.
I don't think they are good.
If their rule is edited in an FAQ in the future, then to be like the rest of the game, then I would absolutely love them.
So that gives us 2,000 points on the nose is this. What other changes do we want to make?
Okay, so Ghost Keel here. I like at least one Ghost Keel. It's another thing that's lone op. It's stealth. It has 2 damages that are incoming to just make it survive. It's 2-up save, T8, 12 wounds. It's very, very nice. I like having the exact loadout that's here because you have that bit of extra range from the Cyclic Ion Raker.
And then if someone comes close, you have Melted Gun that's twin linked. You can try and shoot them.
Yep, it's totally fine. But generally, you get another infiltrating unit so it can start on the objective on your half of the board or it can start close to the center. And it's something that's very good at tying up enemy units. If you've seen some of the games I've played, it's like handful of Terminator. I charged into a 5-man Terminator unit and took no damage. It's like, these guys can soak all sorts of damage. I've charged them into like Talos and Jukari units as well, and just sat there and tanked damage all game. So I really like them for that ability. They're not there for damage, and if you're not running Shadow Sun to give them the rerolls,
they really don't do anything.
Then I don't want to run 3 of them.
No.
I don't want them as a little fire base because they're not going to do much. I'd rather this be a mission playing tool and something that can go jam up my opponent's units so that when they try and get an angle on me or set up to get an angle, the Ghost Keel just charges in there and is like, cool, I'm going to tank this whole turn of your damage, and you probably can't fall back and do stuff. So it can be annoying that way. So 1, it's totally reasonable here. All right, Breachers and Devilfish. So I saved them for towards the end here because they are, you would think this is the strongest mission playing tool that Tau have because they are 2 OC each, and Devilfish can move and disembark them onto an objective, deny your opponent primary, and then they can shoot a decent amount. They've got reroll wounds against targets that are on an objective, and they're BS3 natively. They have the marker-like keyword inbuilt. They have grenades, so they can access some very good strats, but they're efficient by themselves.
Yeah, they're just really solid.
Yep. They are 115 points, and even though they have a Guardian Drone for -1 to wound,
they die immediately.
They will die to everything in the game easily.
They will die to Stormbolters.
They'll die to anything in the game. -1 to wound is basically a joke here. It doesn't actually give them a lot of defense, and they're also paying points for the dumb turret, which they wrote good rules for it in 8th edition, where you could do janky stuff like put it out at the end of your movement phase and then get extra distance for a charge and use it as like a pin. Then they were like, okay, Siegs is using all sorts of... he's using shenanigans with the support turrets. Let's delete them from the game for the next 2 editions.
Yeah.
So, like, you're paying points for something you're never going to use because it's totally useless. And then Devilfish. My big problem with Devilfish is the the model itself is so
so
physically
big.
large that it is enormously hard to hide it on most terrain formats.
Also, like, we played it on the GW format yesterday, and, like, I couldn't fit, like, Hornets places. Devilfish can't go anywhere. It's huge.
Yep. So the contesting play where you move up into the center of the table and disembark them is a lot harder to do. Now, there are good strat support for if your opponent charges the breachers and they can re-embark into the devilfish. And those type of shenanigans, I love that type of stuff. They would be good if this edition had any semblance of melee whatsoever.
Does not exist.
Basically doesn't exist in the top armies. They are all just killing you with shooting. So your breachers are dead. You're never going to use that strat.
So do you want to cut the breachers and devilfish?
We can keep one here.
Okay.
I don't mind having one. Let's just assume that they have terrain where a devilfish can get towards the center and be effective. And we have one turn of, I'm just going to deny them primary. 20 Necron warriors are close to the center objective. I'm going to kill enough of them and put 20 breachers on there, and they're not going to get enough reanimations. But we have a 6-man crisis unit, so that's 20 warriors are dead.
Gone,
Forget about them.
So that gives us 210 points to play with.
Yeah, which is, you're like, okay, he had 420 points in breachers and devilfish.
Yeah.
Neither unit has enough defense. We're keeping one here to go with the theme.
Mm-hmm.
I realistically think you cut both of them and don't even bother with that and just run more lone ops and ghost kills and stuff like that. You could even bring your Vespid back because I don't mind them as advancing in the center of the table as well. They have assault weapons to advance and do actions. But we'll keep one here. Mm-hmm. We have one guaranteed turn of I'm going to deny you primary and put my damage elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Okay? So let's keep that. So what do we do with these last points here?
So we could add like another ghost kill. We could add a small crisis unit.
Could add a small crisis unit. Like I said, I don't think the 3-mans are that effective.
I don't really do that much.
What I have been liking, what are we missing here in terms of tools? Okay, we've got one crisis unit in Deep Strike, one probably starting on the board, though we could put, I think with points we can actually put both in reserve. It might be close. But we're putting Farsight's unit in reserve. He's going to rapid ingress in with the stealth suits, and then what else are we doing in reserve?
I want some screens.
I want some screens, so I'm thinking 3 units of Crude Hounds here.
Done. I love that plan.
So Crude Hounds, you're going to say, wow, their OC is 0. So they don't hold objectives, but they can still do the actions that exist in the game. And they're 30 points. They're slightly more expensive than they were, but man, are they cheap as chips compared to a lot of the game. They're even cheaper than Exaction Squads, and you see them all over the place, although the Exaction Squad is significantly better than them. Having something that can just come in from reserve and be able to do an action for very cheap in the corners of the board, very useful. They're also... I believe they have their infiltrators now and not scouts, I believe.
Let me check. I have the app open. This is just, if you're wondering what I'm doing on my phone, I'm building this list in the app so that I can edit it live. But the app is actually amazing, and you guys should go get it.
Yep.
They scout 9.
Yep, they scout 9. So you can start one unit on the board, get it towards the center.
They have stealth.
Yeah, they have stealth. All the crew units have stealth.
It's
not going to keep them alive, but man,
those
are cool.
I mean, if someone shoots one Stormbolter at you, it might.
Yeah, it could. But anyway, these guys are your cheap mission play. They can also, one unit can ring the outside of your backfield for 30 points and just screen that out for the game. So you don't have to use the Firesight.
There's a tremendous amount of value in being a model on the table, right? Like Spore Mines do nothing, are broken.
Yep. Well, they don't do nothing. They score points.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, they do nothing like they don't kill you and they don't...
And they stop you from advancing. Spore Mines are broken.
Spore Mines, yeah, they're dumb.
They're broken.
Okay, yeah.
But it wouldn't be 40k without Spore Mines being broken. Crude Hounds here. I think you run 3 units. You could go with 2 and save extra points. We might cut one of them to fit an extra unit in here. So we were at 210 and we just spent...
So we have 120 left.
Got 120. Okay. So, what can we do here? We could upgrade both stealth suit units to Tetras.
Okay,
but we're gonna keep the stealth suits because that was I assume they don't have easy access to Tetras.
Yeah. So I'm gonna open the app. See what can we get for 2. We could add a broadside.
That's not good. No. Shadow Sun really demands.
She really does.
Being supporting broadside. So Piranhas are another option here.
Oh, that's a great call.
It's a 55-point unit, can come in from reserve, has 2 Seeker missiles, has a fusion, and is 55 points, relatively defensive, can act as an observer, although you don't really get any benefits from that. So this is assuming we can't just add Tetris in here.
Yep. So if we If we make both the stealth suits Tetras, assuming that's possible, then add 2 piranhas, the list is 2k on the nose. Otherwise, we have 10 points left.
Yep, which is what you're probably upgrading to Tetras. But that also gives you the flex where one Firesight Marksman team could become the Vespid if you're really, really dedicated to Vespid. Goodbye, Devilfish.
Did I spell that right?
Yep.
All right, cool.
No, it's H-A. H-A, yeah.
There you go.
And then...
55.
Yep.
And then it's going to have fusions.
Fusion and Seeker Missiles. Cool. And we're going to get 2 of those. And then we have 10 points, which can make the stealth suits Tetras if we want them to. But we'll just leave those. We could also upgrade the Firesight Marksman to Vespid if you're really...
Yeah,
you really want Vespid.
10 points you can play around.
We'll give you those flex points to mess around with.
So this list is 1990 right here.
Yep. All right. And you could also cut some Crew Towns and get points elsewhere.
Else,
But I think this is a pretty strong archetype for Tau. It's crisis heavy. You've got 2 bricks, so if one gets traded, usually the Farsight one, then the Cold Star, which is faster, gets to just run the table the end game. You have enough screening units, you have enough observer units, you have this one, the Breacher Devilfish combo, I genuinely believe you cut that for more stuff. Or it can be, one of the tools I like is having a Crisis Commander with Patient Hunter, who starts in reserve and is harder to screen out than 3 Crisis models and him. And he just comes down, hits on 2s, you give him a marker drone and a shield drone so he can act as an observer for another unit since he's already hitting on 2s against almost everything. And you can save him until turn 3 to get the +1 to wound. And he's just 12 Siegler shots, he just pops away.
Just 2s and 2s. And,
exactly, just blows something up for relatively cheap. That's another thing that I quite like. But we're going to keep this. This is a very good archetype for Tau, in my opinion.
Completely agree.
All right,
so you want to go to the next Tau list?
Yep, let's head over to the next one.
Boom.
All right, so a bunch of different options here. We don't have Farsight. We've got Shadow Sun in this list. We have, once again, a couple Crisis suits here. We got a smattering of support pieces. We've got broadsides for the first time.
Yeah, broadsides.
So let's say that we are playing in a meta where Knights are just a problem. Long-range things, there's like Wraith Knights all over the place. We want to be able to at least threaten to kill these. So we're going to keep the broadsides as the core of this.
Okay.
I think broadsides are a little too slow for my taste. They can come in from strategic reserve, but then they're stuck there. And I would really only run them in a meta where a lot of towering is problematic. And that's why I'm saying there's a lot of big Knights that are going to be hanging around.
Yeah,
especially on terrain like that isn't WTC. WTC has some 3-story tall ruins that are pure line of sight blocking where you can actually hide a big towering model. Most terrain formats don't have that, so broadsides will be more effective since they can just start shooting turn 1. All right, so we're going to keep the broadsides as the core of this list and try and build an army that can actually support broadsides. So first of all, we need Shadow Sun. She has to stay because she's going to be supporting these broadsides with reroll 1s. And the broadside war gear is 3. We've got the rail rifles, heavy rail rifles, Seeker Missile upgrade, and then you get 1 other ability. I really hate the Twin Plasma because you really shouldn't be in range to use it. And it's only 1 shot, so who cares about that? Instead, Speed has gone for the weapon system to ignore hit mods, which
I think that's probably a good call.
Probably a good call. There's stealth that can be annoying, although it's not super prevalent. And it just means that you can sit out there. It's heavy, so you can get +1 to hit, and then for the greater good, it'll give you access to +1 ballistic skill. So you could just hit on 2s, rerolling 1s, and these guys are quite efficient in doing that. And then 6 shield drones, I also agree with that. Let's make these bad boys 10 wounds.
10 wounds each?
10 wounds each. There are 2 up saves, so 1 up effectively in cover against AP1.
They are weirdly super good against Wraith Knights. Because they have a 4-up against mortal wounds.
They have a 4 Funeral Pain against mortal wounds as well, which is a bizarre ability to have on them, but it does matter. It matters specifically
against Wraith Knights, yeah.
The Wraith Knight. All right, so we got our core broadsides, we got our Commander Shadow Sun, so we got to build around this. What else can we build, can we edit from this list? So we've got a Cadre Fireblade here who would be joining the Breachers and the Devilfish.
How much this Ethereal and this Fireblade that both want to join the Breachers, but like I feel like we only need one.
Well, they can join the Crew Carnivores. The Ethereal can.
Okay.
Crew Carnivores are terrible.
I'm
Delete
gonna
it.
cut them. Goodbye.
They don't do anything whatsoever.
They really don't.
I would rather spend the extra premium to get Breachers, and I already don't like Breachers. So deleted. They're gone. So we got 75 points freed up. I personally, once again, if you're running Breachers, it's not really for their damage. Tau does not lack for anti-infantry firepower.
No.
So in this one,
Fireblade.
I think we're cutting the Fireblade, the Breachers, and the Devilfish. Let's
agree.
get that all out of here and get some points in here. And we're not going to need more than one stealth suit unit, so go ahead and delete that. Broadsides are expensive, so we need to free up quite a bit of points here. Don't worry, we'll get our cheap units back.
Yep.
All right. So, in my opinion, we've got a Cold Star and the Crisis Commander. This Crisis Commander will hang on to for right now. It's 2 3-mans. Once again,
I want a 6-man.
You need to run the 6-man. There's too many brick units in the game that you need to be able to delete in one activation. Whether it's like a 10-man Proteus kill team, it's the
Lich Guard, or
it's
Warriors, or Custodian Guard, or
10 Wraith Guard.
Yes,
I just want them dead. So we're gonna go ahead and do the same exact thing where all of them are marker drone or shield drones. Got the shield gems. You could put one battlesuit support system in here on the Cold Star unit because late game, if you're down to like 2-3 models and you need to be able to fall back and do an action, that lets you do it. But let's just go for max durability and just keep this unit alive and go from there. But that's a tech choice you could add in depending on how your game. So it's going to be 390. Okay, so that's all settled. So now we have our 2 brick units. One is a long-range firepower piece, and it's high AP, high strength, multi-damage, so it's very good against tanks. And it can stick out in the open and try and tank as much damage as possible, while the Crisis unit, whatever's exposed, is going to get hit by the Crisis unit with the Cold Star. All right, we've got 2 Ethereals here. So
do we need this Ethereal?
He is there. I actually quite like the solo Ethereal. If you're not running Farsight.
Like vibing and the CP?
It's the CP. It means you don't have to discard secondary cards to get CP, and Tau want a lot of CP because Strike and Fade is 2. And most good armies are going to make it cost 3, and it's still going to be the only strat I use.
Yep, sure is.
So let's add the Hover Drone onto him, a Gun Drone, and a Marker Drone.
Okay.
Or not a Marker Drone, a Shield Drone. Marker Drone is irrelevant on him because he doesn't have For the Greater Good.
He doesn't?
No, the Ethereals don't.
Okay. Sure.
Neither did the auxiliaries. Hover Drone means that he moves 10 inches with Fly. I believe it's 10, not 8. But he moves faster, and he has Fly keyword. But the Gun Drone allows him to go ahead and advance and do actions. So he can sit in reserve the first 3 turns, come down, do an action in the corner, and then advance onto an objective to do another one. So he's just a mission playing tool that gives me greater consistency of gaining those CP, especially on turns where I don't want to discard a secondary.
The 4-up, right?
It's a 4-up.
Yeah.
Yep. And he can do it from reserve because Games Workshop has that rare rules FAQ which said abilities work in
reserves.
When in reserves.
Okay.
So you just roll that 4-up, baby. All right. Anva, you know I like him. He is a screen. He's a lone op. He's a tank. He's going to charge into...
He's so funny.
Him and the Ghost Killer are going to charge into stuff and tie them up. All right. We got the Cold Star Exemplar, the Kalyan. Once again... get rid of that shield generator and put the high output burst cannon on there. We're striking and fading this unit every turn. Okie doke. All right, so that's a good core. We've got our 1 Ghost Keel. I like that to be able to tie up stuff with Anva and be a screen when he needed to be. Stealth Suits in the center of the board. We got our 1 Piranha, which could be traded for something else. How many points are we looking at?
Like 340.
340. All right, so Tetras. Let's get 2 units of Tetras in here. Tetras are just outstanding. Now, broadsides don't need the benefit of Tetras because they can hit on 2s rerolling 1s, but I would like the redundancy of having... I can expose 1 unit of Tetras, they die, and then I get another killer turn out of my Crisis unit. With Shadow Sun, I don't really need the 3rd unit because Shadow Sun can just support the Crisis unit in the late game when the broadside's targets are dead. So you reroll 1s, hitting on 3s is good enough. You don't need full rerolls to hit.
80 for Tetris?
Yep, cool. 80 points for 2. But they're an infiltrator unit, so they can get aggressive angles, and they're fast. Okay, so I would like a 3rd unit of Crute Hounds to have another screen. We have 2 expensive units.
So we have 150 points left after 2 Tetras and a unit of Crute Hounds.
Okay, 150 points. Let's go ahead and keep this Crisis Commander, but give him Precision of the Hunter.
Right.
Precision of the Patient Hunter.
Yeah.
Down here.
Yeah, I'm copying
The text. And get rid of that shield generator while you're at it. This guy's going to have 12 cyclic shots. He's going to start in reserve and just be a threat. My opponent has to screen. Otherwise, he comes down with 12 cyclic shots, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s against most things, turn 3, and just picks them up. And when you come in from reserve, if the crisis unit, the big crisis unit, has already crippled your opponent's main damage dealers, you can honestly strike and fade the crisis commander to put him behind a terrain piece. If he's not already at an angle where he's safe, and just keep him alive so he can keep doing nonsense in future turns. He can also come down, be an observer, and still hit on 2s because he has the +1 to hit. So he could be the observer that also lets you ignore cover because he has a marker light. He's 130 points.
Yep, he's a solid tech piece.
So now we're 130 left?
Yep, 150 left.
Okay.
Sounds like a ghost kill.
130? We need a cut.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It does sound like a ghost
if
kill.
they were 130, you bet I'd be running through. Okay, so there's one tool that I really like in here that we don't have. That's the Firesight Marksman.
Oh, yes.
I like having at least one of these guys. Either it starts in reserve, comes down into a corner, and my opponent has to be in the corner to deal with him, or he just sits in the firing angles. And I think he really wants to support the broadsides, because they don't need full rerolls to hit, personally.
Mm-hmm. He's 55?
No, he's 70.
70, yeah.
70.
70.
Okay.
So
we should have 120 left. For, minus 70 is 50.
Should be right. We have 60 left.
60 left.
Yeah.
Oh, we had 130.
Yeah.
Okay. So with 60 points, we can either grab an extra Piranha and have 5 points floating over. I don't really hate that.
Sounds good to me.
We could also... we could play around with points here. If we drop one of the Crute Hound units, we get 90.
Mm-hmm.
And that would mean we could get another unit of Tetras if we wanted. Like I said, we don't really need that. So I'm inclined to
Just have the Piranha?
just grab an extra Piranha
Piranha.
and just have more stuff.
Completely agree.
And Seeker Missiles, man, they can pop off.
They're quite good. They're strength like 14, right?
Yep. AP3.
First shoot them with like sustained hits and you're like,
Yeah, when you get Cal Young, if you
Yeah.
bring him in off the table turn 3, which is what I typically try to do, they can just roll some 6s and then you're like, oh, this is amazing. All right, so this is a pretty solid overall list. A little bit different than the first one because it has the broadside brick, so it has better long-range firepower, and it's only relying on one crisis unit, so you have to be very careful with this one, because if you lose it in the late game, you suffer against army units that require volume of fire. But you have a couple tools to do damage out of reserve, like the Crisis Commander here, and you've got enough support pieces, MSU, mission playing, so you easily do secondaries, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, no, this list seems really good.
Yep, and you have Enva plus the Ghost Keel. Those are what ties enemy units up that go to the center of the table, and you use the Crisis Suit unit to blow up whatever is the next layer.
Yeah. All right, Necrons?
Yep.
Boom.
All right, Awaken Dynasty. It is for FormatGetSmash. Thanks so much for submitting your list. So let's look at this one. We've got an Overlord with a Resorb and the Void Scythe. I think that should be the Lord's Blade, or the one that has Dev Wound. Maybe the Void Scythe has Dev Wounds as well.
The Void Scythe, I think, is the 3 damage one.
But that really doesn't matter much. Lord Resorb. Yep, you get your Resorb, you get Lord's Blade. Then you got the Royal Warden with the Sovereign Coronal. Okay, interesting choice. Typically you see that on a Technomancer who has Lone Operative with the Canoptic Cloak, or on a Hexmark Destroyer who has Lone Op inbuilt. Then we've got the another Technomancer here. He has Hypermaterial Ablator. Okay. And then finally, we have another Technomancer. Both of them have the Canoptic Cloak. We're going to get the 5 of Phenopanes almost certainly on these units. We've got the Transcendent Catan with the Sempiternal Weave for 4 of Phenopane. Another Transcendent. And 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers, all with Gauss. So a lot of flat 6 damage anti-tank. We've got 10 Lich Guard with shields, 10 Lich Guard with shields. We've got 2 Crypto Thralls, which are going to go in those units. Then we got 2 Doomsday Arcs and the Canoptic Reanimator. All right, so Canoptic Reanimator, straight up automatic, that stays. Doomsday Arcs, I think they are the strongest like anti-Terminator, anti-elite infantry, and anti-tank that this army has. I've been running 3 personally, and have found 3 to be great, but 2 is still very solid. So those 3 units, we're not going to change them. Double Lich Guard, so we're not going to go for Warriors here. We're going to keep the double Lich Guard. One thing you could do here is go for Orokin to get a 4-up invuln on 1, and you can upgrade them to War Sights. Personally, I've tried them out a couple times. It's still not that much more damage. It is more damage for sure than the swords, but honestly, Necrons have to kind of give up on doing combat damage against any of the really key units. So we'll keep them as the shields. We've got 2 Crypto Thralls in each, Technomancer in each of them, and we've got a Lord and an Overlord. So solid. Now, Hypermaterial Ablator, I much prefer putting this on the Overlord because he's the tankiest character by far. Yes. He's -1 damage, 6 wounds, 2-up save, 4-up invuln. So the Technomancer is much easier for precision to kill. And yes, you can stand it back up, but rules as written, Necron's stand back up happens immediately, so then you keep taking the damage. I think that should be end of phase. It really should be. Maybe that'll be edited in the FAQ. But for now, let's put the Hypermaterial Ablator on him.
He goes to 110, right? It's 25 points for the Ablator.
He goes to 110.
And this guy goes back to 60.
Yeah. So we got 5 of Phenopanes on our units. One of the tech things... So what are we going to delete here? Because we need points. I haven't deleted anything yet.
I think we should get rid of this Royal Warden.
Royal Warden does nothing here.
Yeah,
so Sovereign Coronal is very good for the Doomsday Arcs to give them count as being led by a character, so you can use the reroll wounds at full range, and they get +1 to hit. That's very, very nice. You can also give the +1 to hit to the Locust Heavy Destroyers as well. So I don't mind that at all. I like the Coronal. This character doesn't make any sense, though, because he can't fit in. You can only ever take 2 characters. Even though he has the rule where if a Lord is in the unit, he can go in, the designer's commentary says that you can only cap it 2. So you can't put the Lord in, then put a Cryptek, and then use the Royal Warden's rule to get in there, because the Lord is there. It's only ever 2 max. So you can't get 3 characters in the unit.
So I'm just going to cut him.
No, hold on. We're going to keep the Sovereign Coronal.
Yes.
We're just going to make this a Technomancer. Or a Hexmark Destroyer.
Let's make it a Hexmark.
We don't have a Hexmark, so let's make it, and then he's going to be 100 points with the Sovereign Coronal. This could be a Technomancer with Canoptic Cloak, and he's a lone op, and he can heal the Doomsday Arcs. But you already have 2 Technomancers, and so if you really need to heal, you can bring the Doomsday Arcs in range to do it. If you want that extra D3 for whatever reason. So you already have that flex. Let's get the Hexmark in here. And then Transcendent Catan. We'll keep the Transcendent. The 4-up half damage is very good. How you need to think about him is he starts his mission play. He starts his advance, pick off my opponent's mission play, like take away a corner from them, and then I think you need to use him as a tar pit to just jam up something that's relatively durable that you can't do enough damage to. Just tie that unit up as far away from an objective as possible.
Does he reanimate?
No. Oh. He's the only unit unit in the index that doesn't have reanimation protocols. However, he can be healed by the Canoptic Cloak for D3.
Good to know.
So you can do a little bit of healing on him. But this other Transcendent Catan, gone.
Yeah, he's not
way too expensive for what he brings.
I like the one with the 4-up Viola Pain. The other ones are not worth it.
Yep. I think the Nightbringer is something that you could consider.
Another Transcendent.
Yeah, the other Transcendent. With the 4 Phenopane, it puts them over the edge, but he doesn't do that much damage, I have found. He's kind of swingy. All right, so now we have, how many points?
So let me go ahead and delete the second Transcendent Satan. Gives us 255.
255. Okay. What we don't have here is a couple tech choices that we need. First of all, -2 to move, advance, and charges just wrecks Necrons. So the Thunderfire Cannon does that, the Night Spinner does that,
The
a
Basilisk
bunch of
does
random
that.
other units
Yeah.
do it. You can't afford to go second and have your Lich Guard crippled.
Move 3 inches.
Okay, so one of these Technomancers is getting the Veil of Darkness, which means we're going to have to cut something, and it's going to be the Hypermaterial Ablator.
Yeah.
Because we could cut the Coronal here as well, but honestly, let's support the Doomsday Arcs because we really want them to do consistent damage. And let's add the Veil in here. So 20 points, it brings them up to 80. I love the Hypermaterial Ablator. I run it in most of my ones, but because we have the Transcendent here, usually I don't run it, so I have an extra slot. So if you drop the Transcendent here, then you can put the Hypermaterial back on the Overlord and be all good. But for now, we're just going to say that the Veil is a little too important, in my opinion.
I agree.
You really need to get the Lich Guard into the center of the table to dominate, to like get onto the objective immediately, especially against a bunch of armies, which are, guess what, some of the best armies in the game, that are going to tech against or like shut down your
Yeah, if I go
mobility.
first with Eldar and shoot your Lich Guard, they move 3 inches and can't advance, like,
Yeah,
takes you 3
you're
turns
not
to
getting
walk
that
onto the center
primary
objective.
advantage you need.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now what are we looking at here?
So we have 5 extra points. So we're 255? 255 still.
255. All right. So we have enough board control elements. 2 Lich Guard is plenty to force out your opponents. Damage is the question. We have the Transcendent and the 2 Lich Guard units. We have durable objective holders. We're good on that. We've got
260, but yeah.
Yeah. What else can we add here? So tech things that we can add is
Like a 3rd arc.
we could add the 3rd arc. I'm not against it, but I think because we have the Transcendent here and 2 Lich Guard bricks, we need just cheap stuff to do. There's not a lot that's doing actions in this list so far.
So Tomb Blades or Scarabs?
We got Tomb Glaives as an option. We've got Scarabs as an option. We've got another Crypto Thrall. I really quite like the Crypto Thrall. I just played a game against John's Custodes, which will come out in the War Room, where 2 Crypto Thralls came down turn 3 towards his backfield, made a 9-inch charge into the Sisters of Silence, killed a couple, and then the next turn, on turn 4, finished them off and just held that home objective. So they're just very tanky, and they require some extra commitment to get through. So let's get a third unit of them. And this one is just going to start in reserve and come down as needed. So that's 40 points. Very cheap for what you get. Love them. Scarabs are the next option here. I quite like just having a couple
really like
really
Scarabs.
cheap units. They can do random mortals as well. But these guys are your investigate signals. They're your I screen out my backfields. No problem.
How many points are Scarabs? Are they 40?
40.
Yeah. How many think you have? 2 units?
Let's get 2.
All right.
Okay. What are we looking at now?
So we add the Crypto Thralls and the Scarabs. We're looking at 140 points left.
Okay, 140 points. So I really like having a second Hexmark Destroyer. It means against GSC, they can't reliably come down. And so GSC have a blasting charge unit. It's 10 Acolytes, 4 have blasting charges. It's 3 plus D6 blast, so they'll get plus 2 shots to that, so 5 plus D6. On average, I think it's around 36, and it's strength 12. They're going to get plus 1 ballistic skill, full rerolls from the Primus, and plus 1 to wound.
Yep.
So they're going to cancel out your minus 1 to wound from having a Noble in your Lich Guard unit.
Yes.
These guys basically should, on average, they kill a Lich Guard brick
Which is
for 150
insane.
points.
Yeah.
Your 375 point whatever unit is dead. Especially because we don't have the Hypermaterial Ablator here, which is something that really helps. The minus one hit cancels out their plus 1 ballistic skill. We don't have that here, so it's even more likely that they just wipe the Lich Guard in a single go. So I think we need the second Hexmark. And the reason is, if they come down within 6 inches to use it, then our hex marks are in supporting range to be able to precision out the Primus and get rid of the full rerolls to hit.
Which is huge.
You don't want to target the Acolytes because if you underperform, the 4 blasting charge models still survive and hit you, whereas the Primus is like 4 wounds. The 2 hex marks should pick him up and be able to
Because they Overwatch on 2s, right?
They Overwatch on 2s, and the first model, you spend the CP to Overwatch with him, hitting on 2s, and then the second one uses the ability to Overwatch.
And then if they shoot you back, you shoot and kill something.
Exactly, and then they can just keep shooting back into the GSC army. So I think they're really important tech into GSC who have one of the easiest ways to actually just obliterate a brick. And if they obliterate a brick for 150 points, you're in a bad spot. So I think a second one is mandatory.
So we have 70 points left after this second hex mark.
So we could go for a third hex mark.
I don't hate that.
I don't hate it at all. It can just deep strike in your opponent's backfield and do an action.
There's still lone operatives.
Still lone op. We could go for a death mark unit.
We could. They're 55?
65. So we'd have 5 free floating points. One reason to run death marks is if they go into a corner and your opponent then brings down some cheap chaff, they get to shoot at them. They can also shoot back at GSC as well if they do that.
Try and kill the Primus.
I'm partial to the hex mark because
like
he's
the
lone
hex
op. So let's just add the third hex mark in here. And now we're really quite anti-GSC.
Yes.
Because we need to be. They're one of the best anti-Necron armies. The top armies are very good into Necrons, so you need to very much tech for them, even more so than they're the top armies.
That is 2K on the nose.
All right, I quite like this list. Now, one variant could go for, say, GSC don't exist in your meta, and you don't have to plan for them. We could go for more Locust Heavy Destroyers here. We could drop the 1 Crypto Thrall and the 2 Hex Marks and just add in some more Locust Heavy Destroyers. And just go for, if like Knights are a big problem for you and you've been struggling to beat them, maybe we lean heavier on the Gauss one. So very much meta dependent, but I think this is a very strong core to a Necron army.
You could also find points for a third Doomsday Arc. I quite like Doomsday Arcs.
If you cut the Transcendent, you get the third Doomsday Arc and you can get more
stuff.
You cut the third Hex Mark and you get more Gauss.
I do like the Transcendent.
You can just have a ludicrous
he's like
amount
T11, 12 wounds, half damage, 4 up info, 4 up from the pain. He doesn't die.
Yeah, he's very, very tanky. He's like a Ghost Keel on Va combination with Feel No Pain. But he is very much a tar pit and a mission tool when you need him to be. But I really like this Necron list.
Yeah, I think it's great.
It's very similar to what I've been running in practice.
All right. Is that, well, I think that's everything.
That should be it. Well, it's been a pleasure fixing these lists with you.
I know.
Hopefully people in chat enjoyed kind of the breakdown and the thought process and the different concerns and considerations. I've tried to be flexible and give alternate options, after we built the core. But depending on your local meta, you're always adding in specific tech choices to help there. So always be thinking about that. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed this content. Please let me know what you think of the changes and the list that we designed here or fixed in the description below. And any changes you would have made, any tech choices that you think are really good that might fit in your meta, let us know in the comments. Give us a like, tell your friends about us. Please subscribe to the channel. All of that massively helps us. And if you want to see lists like this in action, we've been playing lists just like this in the Worm. So click the description below, theworm.vhx.tv, and there's a 3-day free trial. Doesn't hurt to check it out. There's lots of content. We're releasing faction fundamentals on every army right now. You get 3 stream games a week, 2 10-minute tips on some advanced tactics like how to use rapid ingress properly. So check that out. Really appreciate everybody, and we'll see you all very soon. Tomorrow is Build a List, and that one is going to be Chaos Space Marines with Mr. Nick Nanavati, and that'll be for next week's stream game.
Nick has a crazy plan.
He's got some wild ideas.
Wild ideas.
If you like chaos ideas, get ready. Buckle in.
I know. We'll see.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next time. So long for now.